Shalom. This is an emergency broadcast alert giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rekha in whom we are in great debt. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, continue doing so, standing firm in the eyes of terror, who I learned this truth from. To the elders, the bishops, Akim and Aquab, salutations and blessings to the house of David, who are the hopeful elect. This is your brother Quasiyar with another quick one. And I couldn't help it but to keep thinking of what a brother said in camp yesterday about the scripture. There's nothing new under the. Let me get it real quick. Hold on. This is Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. And he went into explaining how history repeats itself. And it made perfect sense the way he explained it. Now, I'm not going to get into what he explained. I am going to explain something else that the Lord put in my plate. But what he said, how history repeats itself, is because we are the same spirits coming back. And the only ones who say different are the ones who were appointed to speak these prophecies according to Yahweh Bash and Yahushai as they were appointed. So it sounds like they're saying something different, but everybody's repeating everything the same according to Yahweh Bash and Yahushai. Now, why I'm saying this is because I bought a book, and actually I bought a couple of books, same book, because I wanted to give it to the apostles. It's called A Modest Proposal and Other Satirical Works by Jonathan Swift. If you can get the book, you should get the book. It's not expensive. Amazon has it for under $4. But it's a good read. Why? Because so-called white man is actually explaining to you how they had arranged for women to sell their children so they can eat them. Now, into the subject matter.
Phoenicia. The practice of Baal worship infiltrated Jewish religious life during the time of the Judges and became widespread in Israel during the reign of Ahab and Jezebel. The word Baal means Lord, and the plural is Baalim. In general,
and this is how they get you to do certain things, because you don't look things up. All right? You just go on and listen to someone say something, and you follow that person blindly. That's why they call you two-thirds.
Baal was a fertility god who was believed to enable the earth to produce crops and people to produce children. Different regions worshipped Baal in different ways, and Baal proved to be a highly malleable god. Various locales emphasized one or another of his attributes and developed special denominations of.
And I'm going to leave it there because, that's what I needed from this guy. Now, if you look up the Tower of Babel, right off the back, you might be discouraged because it says the Tower of Babel is an origin myth. So the Tower of Babel is an origin myth and parable in the book of Genesis. So with that, you read that in the very beginning and you be like, it's a lie. The book of the scriptures, it's not true, right? But if you study to show thyself approved, a workman unto the Lord, if it wasn't true, why do people keep repeating it and keep worshiping this deity demon?
And called The Romance of a People. It was part of the Jewish Day celebrations and marked 100 years of Jewish history in Chicago. The pageant featured around 6,000 performers and a bull's head statue on the main stage that went up in flames.
Notice what he has here is a child. Maybe 2 years, 3 years, maybe even younger. He is going to be placed in this box to be cooked, to be burned, to Baal. Okay? So, remember, the video before said there were different variations of this type of worship. Some people might have eaten the baby or just burned them to charcoal. You know, different types of worship.
Forward to 2022, Birmingham Commonwealth Games. A giant mechanical bull dominated the stage during the opening ceremony, evoking a sense of ancient mystery. Along with a
Now, people are going to see, oh, that would be cruel to just burn a baby nowadays, right? But what do they have you do? Abortions? Oh, wait a second. Now you can actually, put your baby in a box in a building for a donation, right? Have you heard of that?
On the latest news, New Mexico lawmaker in 2022 approved a bill to expand the state of safe family program and provide funds to build one baby box for every country where an infant can be left at a safe location without no criminal consequences.
This is a place where it was found. And this is what they did to it. After they found Babel, where they, the tower was built, they went and fixed it all up. Is there archaeological evidence for the Tower of Babel? Yes, there's plenty. So I'm going to read a little piece from the book really quick before I read some more scripture. Let me see. So this is a modern proposal for preventing the children of poor people in Ireland from being a burden to their parents. All right, so guess what? What are women saying nowadays? Oh, I don't want these kids. It's too much. You could go on and on. Right? And then what do you think is going to happen where there's no food stamps for a lot of these women? They're literally going to want to get rid of their kids. So, as to my own part, having turned my thoughts for many years upon this important subject and maturely weigh the several schemes of our projectors, I have always found them grossly mistaken in their computation. It is true, a child just dropped from its dam may be supported by her milk for a solar year with little other nourishment, at most not above the value of 2 cents, which the mother may certainly get, or the value in scraps by her lawful occupation of begging. And it is exactly at 1 year old that a proposal to provide for them in such a manner as, instead of being a charge upon their parents or the parish, or wanting food and remnant for the rest of their lives. They shall, on the contrary, contribute to the feeding and partly to the clothing of many thousands. There is likewise another great advantage in my scheme. Listen carefully, that it will prevent those voluntary abortions and that horrid practice of women murdering their bastard children. Also, Salakia, at last, to frequent among us, sacrificing the poor innocent babies. I bought more to avoid the expense than the scheme which would move tears and pity in the most savage and abundant breast. The number of souls in this kingdom being usually reckoned 1.5 million of these, I calculate there may be about 200,000 couples who wave are breeders, from which number I subtract 30,000 couples who are able to maintain their own children, although I appreciate, or should I say, apprehend there cannot be so many under the parent distress of the kingdom. But this being granted, there will remain 170,000 breeders. You see how they calling the women breeders. I again subtract 50,000 for those women who miscarry or who children die by accident or disease within the year. There only remain 120,000 children of poor parents unusually born. The question, therefore, is how this number shall be reared and provided for, which, as I have already said, under the present situation, affair is utterly impossible by all the methods here there to propose, for we can neither employ them in handcraft or agriculture. We neither build houses, I mean, in the country, nor collective land. They can very seldom pick up a livelihood by stealing till they arrive at 6 years old, except where they are of towardly parts. They are of cowardly parts. Although I confess they learned the redemption much earlier, during which time they can, however, be properly looked upon only as probationers, as I have been informed by a principal gentleman in the country of Cavan, who protests to me that he never knew above 1 or 2 instances under the age of 6, even in a part of the kingdom so renowned for the quickness, proficiency in that art. I am assured by our merchants that a boy or a girl for more 12 years old is no sellable commodity, and even who they come to this age, they will not yield above 30 or 31s. Well, they're talking about selling the kids for them to eat them. Now, they don't want them too old. They need to have them very young because they're tender. Now, I'm not a very good reader. I try to read as much as possible to allow you to see that this continues to this day. I'll play one more before I read 1 Kings.
Here's what comes right out of the headline news that so many people missed. And again, it's hiding in plain sight. When I first start describing it, your audience might think, well, there's really nothing to that. But then listen to exactly what happened and how it happened.
Keep in mind, we're approaching Halloween, and at the same time, they're making cuts, right? Their wicked holidays are approaching, and they have been making many cuts. And the ones who are going to suffer the most are Latino, so-called Latinos, or should I say, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. So-called because we are the 12 tribes of Israel, and
so Arab Spring, we've spoken of that before. It breaks out, and all of this collapse starts happening. Civil war in Syria is just horrific. One of the things that happened in Syria was when ISIS was really thick and heavy and really heavy-handed in that area and controlling of that area, they were destroying as many ancient artifacts as they could that they felt was completely opposed to their Islamic worldview. So one of the things that they destroyed was a temple of Baal built by the Romans during the Roman Empire, which was still there. And the archway that represented the gateway going into the temple. Now, they destroyed it. It used to be a huge tourist attraction. You know, like you can go to Israel today and there's stuff from 2,000 years ago. And people come and they see it. Well, Syria and other parts of the Middle East, Turkey is a big tourist area, the Mediterranean.
And if you look around, that arch is everywhere here in America, okay? They have built one, but the one he's talking about is more of the authentic, how it supposed to have looked.
Syria had some tourist attractions. That was one of them, the ancient Temple of Baal built by the Romans. Well, ISIS came in, started destroying everything they could get their hands on. Christian, pagan, didn't matter, anything. That was one of the things they destroyed. This was in Palmyra, Syria, okay? Now, the archway, they left for a while, but then eventually they destroyed that too. So what happened is this group of people, and I can't remember the name of the group, but again, this was carried in mainstream media because it was announced they were going to first bring it to New York City. But this group of people, kind of under the guise of archaeology and historical preservation, and I say under the guise, I think some of them were very sincere about that. In other words, they were just infuriated by these ancient relics of tourist attraction and ancient history that were just summarily destroyed, okay? And so they wanted to try to recreate them. Well, is 11 tons and it's 5 stories tall.
Wow.
So I mean, this,
so it's big.
Yeah, and it's to scale. Yeah, it's not just some little 8-foot arch that you walk through. No, this is a huge dedication to Baal worship. And the way the thing was originally structured is that this archway represented literally a portal entering from one dimension to the next. Now, I know people say, well, that sounds like science fiction. Well, actually, there's, if you study of quantum mechanics and all of that, I mean, we understand that there are multiple dimensions of reality. The Word of God speaks of that as well. But the Baal worship, Satan literally put it upon the hearts and minds of the worshipers to to build this arch. So you had, before you could approach the temple, you had to go through there, and you were representing, I'm now sanctifying myself, I'm coming into the presence of Baal.
Does not the Lord speaks of you worship, or should I say, give me a second. This is 1 Kings 18, verse 29. And it came to pass, when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order, and cut the bullock in pieces, and laid him on the wood, and said, Fill 4 barrels with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. And he said, Do it the second time. And they did it the second time. And he said, Do it the third time. And they did it the third time. And the water ran round about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord, thy power of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art the power in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord, thy power, and that thou hast turned their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and linked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their face, and they said, The Lord, he is power, the Lord is our power. But it says, He is the God. And Elijah said unto them, Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and slew them there. And this was happening in the time of the Babylonians, right? When they were worshiping and killing children. A lot of the Israelite children were being burnt to Baal. And this because of these people, Edomites and the Arabs that at that time were worshiping Baal, that infected our people with it. Of course, there's so much to go into, but I just wanted to touch up, or should I say, bring out a point that was happening right now is repeated history of sacrificing onto Baal.
It's everything God does, Satan perverts and copycats and mimics and counterfeits.
Mm-hmm.
So the temple on the Temple Mount, there was the outer courts, and then the inner sanctuary, then the Holy of Holies, and the priest had to prepare themselves as they came, and then only one priest could go into the Holy of Holies. Well, see, Satan kind of replicates all of that. So he's got the archway where you have to come through that first, and then you go in. All right, so what they did was they rebuilt and replicated the arch. Then in 2016, it was announced, it was in early 2016, I think January.
And before he could, I just had to say this because this is why I read 1 Kings 18. It's because the Lord, Yahushua himself, is going to do it, right? You're going to see his works again.
February, something.
By prayer, like in that time. He has brought his apostles again to prophesy.
Like that. New York Times headline article, other world publications, national publications, Washington Post. The Temple of Baal is coming to Times Square. That was the headline. Something very close to that. I'm paraphrasing, but that literally was the temple.
And who's in New York prophesying? I mean, GMS is pretty much all over right now, but the main camp, Apostle Tahar, Apostle Gabar, and Apostle Ramla was the ones who I learned from, right? So, in Manhattan, the truth is coming out of Manhattan right now. But, that's where it first started coming out anyway, in Manhattan, right? This is a repeated of a history.
Temple of Baal will be erected in Times Square. Well, that headline, really infuriated a lot of people. There was an outcry. I mean, the whole evangelical Christian community said, what? And then even people in New York City, even if they weren't believers or, Bible-believing Christians, they were kind of freaked out by that. So there was such an outcry that they backed off and said, no, well, we'll do something else. We won't do that. But so what happened was they changed the wording, because it really wasn't the Temple of Baal, but it was the archway that represented coming into the presence of Baal. So what they did, just a few months later, they opened with this production in London, okay? Now, their headline was, we want to take this on a world tour to show the world this relic that we've had to recreate to show you what, nasty ISIS did. And then their theme was, because this represents freedom. Well, if you go back into the ancient historical writings of the worship of Baal, that's right. That's exactly what it represents. So again, hiding in plain sight. This represents freedom. And then they said it represents victory. And then they said this will show that ISIS can never win. Well, an arch to Baal is representative that ISIS cannot win? That didn't even make sense. No. But what they did was, they couldn't get it into New York City. And by the way, it wasn't the Temple of Baal, but that's what the headline said, and that's what everybody reacted to. It was this archway. So they opened it in London, the #1 economic capital of the European Union then, before Brexit started, and also #1 or #2 economic capital of the world. New York City and London are constantly back and forth on that. And so they opened it there. And again, your audience is probably thinking, well, what's the big deal? It's just a little historical artifact. And London, of course, one of the great major cities of the world. Why not? Okay. But here's where the thing gets creepy. They opened it. They aligned the opening and the unveiling of it to correspond with Beltane, Beltane. Your viewers can look all of that up, and that literally translates to the fires of Baal. And it is an internationally recognized celebration of Baal. It's their holiday. It's
like a Halloween.
It's like a Halloween, if you will.
Okay.
And so, in the fires of Baal, Beltane, that's what the celebration is called. That goes back to the fires of infant sacrifice in the Old Testament. Beltane, that's what it means. So they unveiled this thing in honor. Now you say, well, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, but just watch. But they unveiled this thing in honor of Baal and the fires of Baal on the day of Beltane in London, the economic capital of the world and of the European Union, and we know how all those might tie into prophecy. And so here it is. There's the first unveiling. They tried to do it in New York City first. Well, what's in New York City? Well, the United Nations, Ground Zero, another economic capital of the world. If not number one, it's number two. I mean, right there with London. So they opened it in London. They kind of stilled the waters back in America. Then they redid the headline, and they said, the Palmyra Arch. They didn't even put the word Baal in it. The Palmyra Arch, the historical artifact, will be on display in New York City. And everybody went, oh, that's cool. You see?
It's like bringing a Ramesses from ancient Egypt display through and coming through through the museums and all that.
That's right. So, but then what they did, they took the same thing that everybody reacted. They bring it to New York City, home of the United Nations. Now, I'm emphasizing this because it's going to go a couple of other places too on this world tour. In every place, I'll go ahead and give it away, every place they take it is a globalist economic financial power center, which is what Baal worship is all about. Power and wealth and freedom. And that's what they're declaring. So they move it from London. Then some weeks later, a month and a half later, they take it to New York. Now it's not called the Temple of Baal. It's not even called the Arch of Baal. It's called the Palmyra Arch. Oh, and it's a historical display, but they display it now in a park right across from City Hall in New York, which is just a block or two away from Ground Zero and not too far from the United Nations. So it's right there. And the mayor comes out, makes a big speech about how this represents freedom. And they never say, freedom from what? What are you talking about? But again, the historical understanding of the worship of Baal, that was the theme. Freedom from Yahweh, freedom from the Lord, freedom from His regulations, freedom
from Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. This is the separation that they were trying to create. Well, they created for themselves. All right, this is why they're always attacking the word. This goes into the persecution of the Christians, Jacob's trouble, the fact that they're creating that new world order, the sea hip, man.
From His law, freedom from His word. All right, so they unveil it in New York. Well, by the time it gets to New York,
the RIFD that they're gonna implement. That's another prophecy that is yet to be fulfilled.
And people like us are watching this. And I was not the only one to see this. I was one that was outspoken early on, but there were many others too. They first saw it in London, opened on Beltane, and they said, that's pushing just a little. I mean, if it's just going to be a historical display, you just want to display, like you said, Ramses and all. The next place they took it was to Dubai.
That makes sense.
They took it to Dubai, and they coordinated it with the opening of the World Governance Summit. Named people Elon Musk, speaker, and a bunch of Dubai, and they coordinated it with the opening of the World Governance Summit. 4,000 people from 130 nations of the world leaders were there. Big name people, Elon Musk, speaker, and a bunch of globalists. They were all the speakers. Barack Obama was there. Barack Obama was a part of helping to get the World Governance Council started. One of their themes in the headline news was one of the spokespeople for it said, well, what we're trying to do is to bring all the nations of the world together under one umbrella. And I'm going to put quotes because that's a quote. I'm quoting. That's what this is about. Bringing all the nations of the world together under one umbrella. Well,
that's scary.
Well, that's the Antichrist spirit. That's the globalist spirit. Okay, so now follow the trail because it goes one more place. London on Beltane, New York, United Nations, Ground Zero, world's most powerful superpower nation, economy, money, power, everything that goes with it. Dubai, the gateway between Africa, Asia, in Europe, the financial center of that whole area. What's happening there? The World Governance Council. How did the World Governance Council open? With the unveiling of the Arch of Baal. It was all a part of the ceremony. So that happens now. People like me and others, now we're watching I'm...
And since history, and sorry about the interruption, but since history repeats itself and the souls of the people keep getting born, reborn, and they keep practicing the same old things. As the prophets come back, they prophesy of these things. The Lord will also have his sacrifice. He will have his altar built, which is already being built for the sacrifice. All right, just like Elijah in 1 Kings 18, that he built, the Lord burnt that one, and he gonna burn this one, which is the daughter of Babylon, right? AKA America. All right? If you don't understand that, I hope that I explain it the best way possible and you could understand what I'm trying to tell you, the message. All right? This is the worship of Baal, plain and simple. And the Lord is going to go and destroy. This is Basra. This is, Egypt. This is all of them. They all worshiping, all these Arabs, all these people, they worshiping the same thing. They calling it by different names.
And this is in your face. Mm-hmm. This is in your face. It's like Satan's taking a victory march of the power centers of the world. He said, it's kind of, how we do as kids, put a basket full of rolls on the table and there's 100.
And this is AKA, Esau Edom. All right? So-called white man. All right, he's the one. He's the living entity of Satan, the spiritual Satan, man. Because Satan follows what Yahushua says.
People around town, we go, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. We touch all the rolls because nobody else will want to touch it if we touch it. That little children's game we play. That's how I compared this. It's like Satan saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. London's mine, New York's mine, Dubai's mine, World Governance Council, the United Nations, Beltane, the power, the money, the control, these are mine, head of the European Union, the most influential nation of the world, Dubai, the New York of Middle East, if you will. Then, a few months later, it goes to Florence, Italy, at the opening of the G7 conference. Another kind of United Nations, many people believe a globalist-minded institution. And they opened the G7 conference with the ceremony to the Arch. So, I know people...
And he's talking about it, but you see his face, he's so happy about it. Because he's telling you about it, but he is going along with it too. Because those are his people.
Listening to this can say, well, maybe you're just reading too much into it. Maybe I am, but I don't think so. Because I know what the scriptures say about the last days And the scriptures don't use these words, but this is what it says. The hiding in plain sight of the demonic
Yes.
outpouring. There will.
Anyways, that's all I have. Shalom.